Why you're always attracted to the wrong people. There's a psychological reason why you're consistently attracted to people who seem exciting but ultimately hurt you, and it has nothing to do with bad luck. Recent studies show our brains are wired to find certain personality types irresistible, even when they're toxic for our well-being. The fascinating part is that these attraction triggers reveal specific things about our own psychological makeup, particularly early childhood imprinting and dopamine-driven reward patterns we might not even realize we have. Understanding this hidden psychology could finally explain why your relationships follow the same patterns and how to break free from them. What happens inside your brain during these attractions might surprise you. The neuroscience behind destructive attraction. Your brain fundamentally changes its structure when exposed to toxic relationship patterns, creating neural pathways that make harmful partners feel more attractive than healthy ones. Neuroscientists have discovered that repeated exposure to unpredictable relationship dynamics literally rewires our reward systems, making us crave the very experiences that cause emotional damage. This process happens where neurons form stronger connections around memories associated with intense emotional experiences, whether positive or negative. The brain cannot distinguish between excitement from danger and excitement from genuine attraction, which explains why toxic partners often feel more thrilling than stable ones. The dopamine reward system plays a central role in this destructive attraction cycle. When we encounter unpredictable behavior from romantic partners, our brains release dopamine in anticipation of potential reward, creating the same neurochemical response seen in gambling addiction. This system evolved to help our ancestors survive by making them alert to uncertain but potentially beneficial situations. However, in modern relationships, this same mechanism makes inconsistent partners feel more exciting than those who provide steady affection. The unpredictability creates a dopamine hit that consistent kindness cannot match, leading us to interpret chaos as passion and stability as boredom. Intermittent reinforcement schedules create the strongest behavioral conditioning patterns known to psychology, and toxic relationships often follow these exact patterns. When a partner alternates between affection and withdrawal, attention and neglect, the brain responds by increasing its investment in the relationship. This happens because intermittent rewards create more powerful neural connections than consistent ones. The brain essentially becomes addicted to trying to predict when the next positive interaction will occur, creating an obsessive focus on the unpredictable partner. This mechanism explains why people often report feeling more intensely connected to partners who treat them poorly compared to those who are consistently loving. Neural pathways formed during childhood create templates for adult romantic attraction that operate below conscious awareness. The brain develops these patterns based on early caregiver relationships, establishing baseline expectations for how love should feel and function. Children who experienced inconsistent caregiving develop neural networks that associate love with uncertainty and emotional intensity. These early formed pathways become so deeply embedded that they guide adult partner selection without conscious input. The familiarity of these patterns makes toxic relationship dynamics feel normal and even comforting, despite their harmful effects. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline can actually intensify romantic feelings, creating a biochemical confusion between danger and attraction. When we encounter threatening or unpredictable situations with romantic partners, our bodies release stress hormones that increase heart rate, heighten awareness, and create physical sensations similar to those experienced during romantic attraction. This physiological response can make toxic relationships feel more intense and meaningful than healthy ones. The brain interprets these stress responses as signs of deep connection, creating a false association between emotional turmoil and true love. Brain imaging studies have revealed distinct activation patterns in individuals consistently attracted to harmful partners. These studies show that attraction to toxic partners involves both heightened emotional reactivity and diminished logical reasoning capacity. The emotional centers of the brain become hyperactive, while areas responsible for rational decision-making show decreased activity when these individuals encounter toxic relationship scenarios. The rational mind frequently loses battles against these deep-seated neural responses because conscious thought processes operate much more slowly than automatic emotional reactions. The limbic system, which governs emotional responses and attraction, can process information and trigger reactions within milliseconds. Meanwhile, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logical analysis and decision-making, requires several seconds to evaluate situations and generate rational responses. This timing difference means that attraction decisions are often made before conscious thought can intervene, explaining why people consistently choose partners they intellectually know are wrong for them. Trauma bonding creates neurochemical connections that closely mimic genuine love, making it difficult to distinguish between authentic attachment and psychological conditioning. This process involves the release of oxytocin and vasopressin, the same hormones present in healthy romantic bonds, during cycles of abuse and reconciliation. The intensity of these neurochemical releases during trauma bonding often exceeds those found in stable relationships, creating bonds that feel more powerful than healthy connections. The brain interprets these intense chemical responses as evidence of deep love, making trauma-bonded relationships feel more meaningful and irreplaceable than they actually are. The stress response system can become dysregulated through exposure to toxic relationships, creating a cycle where calm, healthy interactions feel foreign and uncomfortable. When someone becomes accustomed to high levels of relationship stress, their nervous system adapts by maintaining a constant state of hypervigilance. This adaptation makes peaceful relationships feel boring or even threatening because the nervous system interprets the absence of chaos as a sign that something dangerous might be approaching. The brain essentially becomes addicted to crisis mode, making toxic relationships feel more natural than healthy ones. Understanding these neurological processes represents the first step toward breaking free from destructive attraction patterns. Awareness of how the brain creates these responses helps separate automatic reactions from conscious choices, creating space for different decisions. The brain's neuroplasticity means that these deeply embedded patterns can change with consistent effort and awareness. However, this process requires patience because established neural networks resist change and will continue to influence attraction patterns until new ones become stronger. These same neurological mechanisms also explain why we often find ourselves most drawn to people who seem just out of reach. The unavailable partner trap. When someone consistently rejects your advances, it can feel as intense as reward anticipation, creating a counterintuitive psychological response where being turned down actually increases their perceived value. This phenomenon occurs because our brains interpret scarcity and difficulty as indicators of worth, leading us to want things more intensely when they become harder to obtain. The rejection triggers dopamine release that enhances our focus on the person who denied us, making them appear more desirable than they were before the rejection occurred. This neurological response explains why people often report feeling more attracted to someone immediately after being rejected, rather than losing interest and moving on. Our cognitive systems automatically equate effort with value, causing us to assign greater worth to relationships that require more work to maintain. This mental shortcut developed as an evolutionary advantage, helping our ancestors identify valuable resources by noting which ones required significant effort to obtain. In modern dating contexts, this same mechanism makes emotionally distant partners seem more valuable than those who are readily available and consistently responsive. The brain interprets the difficulty of connecting with unavailable partners as evidence of their superior worth, creating a false correlation between relationship challenges and partner quality. Anxious attachment styles create a specific vulnerability to emotionally distant partners because they activate familiar patterns learned during childhood. Individuals with anxious attachment experienced inconsistent caregiving that taught them to work harder for attention and affection when it became withdrawn. This early conditioning creates neural pathways that associate love with pursuing someone who pulls away, making emotionally unavailable partners feel more familiar and comfortable than secure ones. The anxiety triggered by an unavailable partner feels like passion because it matches the emotional intensity these individuals learn to associate with attachment during their formative years. Deep-seated beliefs about personal worthiness often manifest as the conviction that love must be earned through suffering and persistence. These beliefs typically form during childhood, when conditional love taught individuals that affection was something to be deserved rather than freely given. The internal narrative becomes one where easy relationships feel too good to be true, while difficult ones feel authentic and meaningful. This psychological framework makes unavailable partners appear more legitimate, because their distance confirms existing beliefs about having to work for love and acceptance. The pursuit of unavailable partners often involves fantasy addiction, where the imagined potential of the relationship becomes more compelling than actual relationship experiences. These fantasies allow individuals to project ideal qualities onto partners while avoiding the reality of their actual personalities and behaviors. The unavailable partner becomes a blank screen for projecting romantic dreams and desires without the complications of genuine intimacy or real-world relationship challenges. This fantasy engagement provides emotional satisfaction without requiring the vulnerability and compromise that characterize authentic relationships. Social media platforms have intensified attraction to unavailable individuals by providing constant visual reminders of people who remain just out of reach. The curated nature of social media profiles allows unavailable individuals to maintain an attractive presence without genuine emotional availability, creating perfect conditions for fantasy-based attraction. Viewing updates from emotionally distant partners triggers the same reward pathways as intermittent reinforcement, keeping individuals psychologically engaged despite minimal actual interaction. The platforms also enable passive pursuit behaviors like viewing stories and posts without direct engagement, allowing people to maintain connection fantasies without facing rejection or reality. Healthy pursuit involves genuine interest in getting to know someone combined with respect for their boundaries and responses, while self-destructive chasing ignores clear signals of disinterest or unavailability. Healthy pursuit includes honest communication about intentions, acceptance of the other person's current capacity for relationship, and willingness to walk away if compatibility does not exist. Self-destructive chasing, however, involves persistent contact despite lack of reciprocation, misinterpreting minimal responses as encouragement, and refusing to accept that the other person has communicated their unavailability through their actions or words. Fear of intimacy frequently disguises itself as attraction to unattainable partners because pursuing someone unavailable provides the illusion of romantic engagement without the risks of genuine closeness. This pattern allows individuals to experience the excitement and emotional intensity of romantic pursuit while maintaining emotional safety through the other person's unavailability. The fear of being truly known and accepted drives unconscious selection of partners who cannot provide deep intimacy, creating a protective barrier against vulnerability. This mechanism lets people maintain romantic identity and hope while avoiding the genuine emotional exposure that intimate relationships require. The pursuit of unavailable partners provides specific psychological payoffs that keep individuals trapped in these patterns despite their apparent futility. Staying in pursuit mode allows people to maintain hope and romantic excitement without facing the actual challenges of relationship building, conflict resolution, or long-term compatibility assessment. The constant chase provides a sense of purpose and emotional intensity that can feel more meaningful than the steady satisfaction of secure relationships. Additionally, pursuit mode keeps individuals focused on external validation rather than internal growth, avoiding the self-examination that healthy relationships often require. The pattern of pursuing unavailable partners often becomes self-reinforcing because it confirms existing beliefs about relationships being difficult and love being scarce. Each unsuccessful pursuit validates the internal narrative that worthwhile relationships require intense effort and that easily obtained love is somehow less valuable. This confirmation bias prevents individuals from recognizing that their attraction patterns, rather than external circumstances, create their relationship difficulties. The cycle continues because the familiar emotional experience of pursuit feels more authentic than the unfamiliar experience of being genuinely wanted and available. Understanding this dynamic is crucial for cultivating self-worth and seeking relationships where genuine appreciation and reciprocity are present. These patterns frequently lead to imbalanced relationships where one person invests more emotionally than the other. Breaking free from unavailable partner attraction requires recognizing these patterns and developing comfort with relationships that feel different from familiar pursuit dynamics. The roots of these attraction patterns run much deeper than conscious choice, extending back to the earliest experiences that shaped how we learn to connect with others. Childhood imprints that control your love life. The relationship patterns you develop during your first 7 years of life create an unconscious blueprint that determines who you find attractive decades later. This critical period establishes neural pathways and emotional associations that operate below conscious awareness, guiding your romantic choices without your knowledge. The brain forms these foundational relationship templates based on interactions with primary caregivers, creating expectations about how love should feel, function, and unfold. These early experiences become so deeply embedded that they feel like natural preferences rather than learned responses, making it difficult to recognize when childhood imprints are controlling adult relationship decisions. Imprint theory explains how early caregivers become unconscious relationship templates that shape adult partner selection. The relationships formed with caregivers during childhood significantly influence the relationships individuals form later in life. This theory suggests that the early bond with a caregiver shapes an individual's attachment style, which affects their approach to relationships, including their choice of romantic partners. The quality of this early attachment sets the stage for how individuals navigate intimacy, trust, and emotional security in their adult relationships. These imprints function like internal maps that guide us toward familiar relationship dynamics, even when those dynamics cause pain during childhood. Sexual imprinting demonstrates how early experiences shape the criteria used in mate selection. A study by Bresson and Damien found that women whose fathers had light eyes showed a stronger preference for light-eyed men, suggesting paternal imprinting in human females. This effect was particularly pronounced in women who reported a positive relationship with their fathers, indicating that the quality of the early relationship modulates the impact of imprinting on mate preferences. This research provides compelling evidence for how even physical characteristics can be imprinted during childhood and influence adult attraction patterns. The brain interprets these familiar patterns as evidence of compatibility, creating attraction to people who replicate childhood relationship experiences. We recreate familiar dynamics even when they caused us pain, because the brain prioritizes predictability over happiness in relationship selection. Familiar relationship patterns feel safe to the unconscious mind, regardless of their actual impact on well-being. The neural pathways formed during childhood become so well established that they create comfort with known dysfunction rather than unknown health. This psychological mechanism explains why people consistently choose partners who treat them similarly to how their caregivers did, even when those treatment patterns were harmful or inadequate. The brain essentially chooses emotional familiarity over emotional satisfaction. Emotional neglect during childhood creates specific attraction patterns toward emotionally unavailable adults because it establishes emotional distance as the baseline for relationships. Children who experienced emotional neglect learn that love comes with emotional unavailability, creating neural associations between romantic attachment and emotional distance. These individuals often find emotionally available partners overwhelming or untrustworthy because consistent emotional presence feels foreign and suspicious. The neglect teaches them that pursuing emotionally distant partners is normal, creating adult relationships characterized by the same emotional starvation they experienced as children. The phenomenon of seeking partners who mirror our most challenging parent represents an unconscious attempt to resolve unfinished emotional business from childhood. The brain believes it can heal old wounds by recreating the problematic relationship dynamic and achieving a different outcome. This psychological mechanism drives people toward partners who embody the same difficult qualities that caused pain during childhood, hoping to finally receive the love or validation that was missing. However, this strategy typically fails because the adult partner is not the original parent and cannot provide the specific healing that the inner child seeks. Unmet childhood needs drive us toward people who cannot fulfill them because the unconscious mind seeks to recreate the original relationship dynamic rather than find genuine satisfaction. The brain focuses on familiar emotional patterns rather than evaluating whether potential partners can actually provide what we need. This creates a psychological trap where individuals consistently choose partners who trigger the same unmet needs that originated in childhood, perpetuating cycles of emotional frustration and disappointment. The unconscious hope is that recreating the original dynamic will somehow lead to different results, but this rarely occurs without conscious intervention. The difference between conscious choice and unconscious repetition in relationships lies in awareness of why we find certain people attractive. Conscious choice involves examining attraction patterns, understanding their origins, and evaluating potential partners based on compatibility and capacity for healthy relationship dynamics. Unconscious repetition involves automatically gravitating toward familiar relationship patterns without questioning their origins or examining their impact on well-being. Most people operate from unconscious repetition, following attraction impulses that feel natural but actually represent conditioned responses from childhood experiences. Attachment theory identifies 4 main attachment styles that are shaped by early interactions with caregivers. These attachment styles influence the types of partners individuals are drawn to and how they behave in relationships. Those with an anxious attachment style may be drawn to emotionally distant partners, often with avoidant attachment styles, in an attempt to recreate and resolve past relational dynamics. This creates predictable relationship patterns where anxiously attached individuals pursue avoidantly attached partners, recreating the same emotional dynamics they experienced during childhood. Healing childhood wounds can completely shift attraction patterns because it addresses the root psychological mechanisms that drive partner selection. Therapy, particularly attachment-based modalities, can be highly beneficial for healing childhood relationship wounds and shifting attraction patterns. By exploring the initial feelings that arise when dating someone unavailable, individuals can identify the subconscious wounds they are trying to heal. This process involves acknowledging and exploring the pain caused by past experiences, which can lead to showing up differently for oneself and cultivating self-compassion. Specific signs that childhood imprints are sabotaging current relationships include consistent attraction to the same problematic personality types, feeling more excited by partners who are emotionally distant, finding healthy relationships boring or uncomfortable, repeatedly choosing partners who cannot meet emotional needs, feeling responsible for fixing or changing partners, experiencing anxiety when partners are consistently available and loving, and interpreting kindness as weakness or lack of authenticity. These patterns often lead us to seek partners who embody qualities that feel exciting precisely because they represent everything we were taught to avoid. The rebel attraction phenomenon. This psychological conditioning creates powerful attraction to partners who embody characteristics that feel forbidden or dangerous in our own lives. Rule breakers and rebels trigger intense romantic responses because they represent psychological freedom from the constraints that govern our daily lives. These individuals embody characteristics that many people suppress within themselves due to social expectations, family pressures, or professional requirements. The attraction to rebellious partners stems from vicarious liberation, where we experience freedom through someone else's willingness to challenge authority and social norms. This psychological mechanism allows us to feel connected to excitement and adventure without taking personal risks or facing potential consequences. The rebel becomes a vehicle for experiencing aspects of ourselves that we have learned to hide or deny. Partners who represent freedom from social constraints appeal to the parts of our personality that feel restricted by conventional expectations. Many people spend their lives following rules, meeting obligations, and conforming to social standards while suppressing their desires for spontaneity and nonconformity. Rebellious partners offer an escape from this psychological cage, providing access to experiences and emotions that feel forbidden or dangerous. The attraction intensifies because these partners seem to possess qualities that we admire, but feel unable to express ourselves. Their freedom becomes intoxicating because it represents everything we believe we cannot have or be. Attraction to rebellious types often reflects our own repressed desires for liberation that we have not found healthy ways to express. According to Psychology Today research, attraction to rebellious types may reflect our own repressed desires for freedom, rebelliousness, and excitement. The rebel partner becomes a projection screen for our unfulfilled wishes to break free from restrictions, challenge authority, or live according to our own rules rather than societal expectations. This attraction can indicate that we have suppressed important aspects of our personality in order to fit into acceptable social roles. The rebellious partner temporarily satisfies these repressed desires through association, allowing us to feel rebellious without actually taking risks ourselves. However, this dynamic creates dependency on the partner to provide experiences that we should be creating for ourselves. Healthy independence in a partner involves self-sufficiency, strong personal boundaries, and the ability to think critically without being destructive or harmful to others. These individuals make autonomous decisions based on their values while maintaining respect for other people and social responsibilities. They can challenge ideas and systems constructively, offering alternative perspectives without causing unnecessary chaos or pain. Destructive rebellion, however, involves breaking rules and challenging authority primarily to create conflict, gain attention, or avoid responsibility. These patterns often stem from unresolved emotional issues rather than genuine principles or values, leading to behaviors that harm both the rebel and their relationships. Stable, Reliable people often feel boring compared to chaotic personalities because chaos creates artificial intensity that mimics passion and excitement. The unpredictability of chaotic partners triggers stress responses that increase heart rate, heighten awareness, and create physical sensations similar to those experienced during romantic attraction. This biological response makes chaos feel more engaging than the steady satisfaction provided by reliable partners. Additionally, stable relationships require us to face ourselves and our own issues without external drama to distract us. Many people find this internal focus uncomfortable, preferring the external stimulation provided by chaotic partners to avoid self-examination. Societal pressures create unconscious rebellion through partner choice by making certain relationship types feel forbidden or socially unacceptable. When society promotes specific ideals about appropriate partners, some individuals unconsciously select rebellious partners as a form of psychological resistance. This rebellion often occurs without conscious awareness, manifesting as attraction to people who violate social expectations about successful relationships. The partner choice becomes a way to assert independence from family expectations, cultural norms, or peer pressure. Psychology Today research suggests that women who choose rebellious partners may be prioritizing short-term physical attraction over long-term emotional support as a form of rebellion against societal expectations or a desire for freedom from social constraints. Shadow psychology explains our attraction to rule breakers as connection with disowned aspects of ourselves that we have learned to suppress. Carl Jung described the shadow as containing all the parts of our personality that we have rejected or hidden due to social conditioning. Rebellious partners often embody shadow qualities that we find both fascinating and frightening within ourselves. The attraction allows us to experience these forbidden aspects through someone else without taking responsibility for expressing them directly. This psychological mechanism creates intense but unstable relationships because we are essentially falling in love with projected parts of ourselves rather than the actual person. Distinguishing between authentic confidence and manipulative charm requires examining whether someone's rebellious behavior serves constructive purposes or merely creates chaos for personal gain. Authentic confidence involves taking principled stands against unfair systems while maintaining respect for other people's well-being and rights. These individuals can explain their positions clearly and accept consequences for their choices without blaming others. Manipulative charm, however, involves using rebellious behavior to gain attention, control situations, or avoid accountability. These patterns often include selective rule-breaking that benefits the individual while harming others, combined with superficial charisma designed to distract from harmful behaviors. Rebel attraction often leads to relationships that mirror internal conflicts because we are essentially trying to resolve our own psychological struggles through our partner's behavior. The attraction to rebels frequently represents conflict between our desire for freedom and our need for security, our wish to challenge authority and our fear of consequences, or our longing for excitement and our requirement for stability. These internal contradictions remain unresolved when we attempt to address them through partner selection rather than personal development. The relationship becomes a battleground for these competing desires, creating ongoing tension and dissatisfaction. The rebel partner cannot resolve our internal conflicts because they are external to us and cannot provide the integration that must happen within our own psyche. When we use rebellious partners to experience forbidden aspects of ourselves, we avoid the necessary work of integrating these qualities in healthy ways. This creates relationships where we remain dependent on the partner to provide experiences we should be developing independently. Sometimes this attraction to rebels masks an even deeper psychological pattern where we unconsciously seek out partners who need our help or intervention. The fixer complex decoded. This pattern reveals itself most clearly in the desire to save or fix romantic partners, which contains psychological elements that most people never recognize within themselves. This behavior involves an unconscious belief that you possess special abilities to transform another person's life, suggesting an inflated sense of your own power and importance in someone else's healing journey. The fixer complex creates a dynamic where you become the hero of someone else's story, positioning yourself as uniquely capable of providing what previous partners, family members, or therapists could not. This fantasy feeds the ego by making you feel exceptional and necessary, while simultaneously avoiding the vulnerability required for genuine partnership between equals. The underlying assumption that your love alone can overcome deep-seated psychological issues, addiction problems, or personality disorders that typically require professional intervention and years of personal work reveals the complexity of this attraction pattern. Rescuer fantasies mask profound issues with self-worth and control by creating relationships where your value depends on someone else's problems. When you consistently choose partners who need fixing, you avoid confronting your own insecurities and emotional wounds by focusing entirely on theirs. This pattern allows you to feel important and valuable without developing genuine self-worth based on your own qualities and achievements. The control aspect manifests through the belief that you can manage another person's emotions, behaviors, and life choices through your care and attention. This illusion of control provides psychological comfort, but prevents authentic intimacy because the relationship becomes based on your ability to fix rather than mutual appreciation and respect. The cycle of choosing broken people to feel needed becomes addictive because it provides consistent validation and purpose without requiring personal growth or vulnerability. Each new partner with problems offers fresh opportunities to prove your worth through rescue attempts, creating a pattern where relationship success becomes measured by your ability to help rather than genuine compatibility or happiness. This addiction operates similarly to other behavioral dependencies, providing temporary emotional highs followed by periods of frustration and disappointment when fixing attempts fail. The cycle reinforces itself because each unsuccessful rescue attempt creates the belief that you simply need to try harder or find someone whose problems better match your helping abilities. Childhood roles as family caretakers create specific neural pathways that make dysfunction feel familiar and comfortable in adult relationships. Children who become emotional caretakers for parents, siblings, or family systems learn that their value comes from managing other people's problems and emotions. These early experiences teach them that love requires sacrifice, that relationships involve one person helping another, and that their needs matter less than everyone else's well-being. The brain forms strong associations between caregiving and feeling loved or important, making it difficult to experience satisfaction in relationships where both partners contribute equally. Adult relationships with healthy, independent partners can feel foreign and uncomfortable because they don't activate these familiar caregiving neural pathways. Family systems often assign children specific roles that prepare them for adult relationship patterns, with the caretaker role being particularly damaging for future romantic success. Children in chaotic families frequently become surrogate parents, therapists, or mediators, learning to prioritize everyone else's emotional needs over their own development. This conditioning creates adults who automatically scan potential partners for problems they can solve rather than evaluating compatibility, shared values, or mutual attraction. The caretaker identity becomes so central to their sense of self that they struggle to imagine their value in relationships outside of helping others overcome difficulties. Genuine compassion involves caring about someone's well-being while respecting their autonomy and capacity for self-determination. This type of caring includes supporting someone's growth without trying to control their choices or timeline for change. Genuine compassion recognizes that each person must do their own healing work and that love cannot force transformation in another human being. Codependent attraction, however, involves caring that becomes controlling, where your emotional stability depends on the other person's progress and choices. This pattern includes taking responsibility for someone else's feelings, making excuses for their harmful behaviors, and believing that your love can overcome their unwillingness to change. Social media platforms have amplified savior complex behaviors in dating by providing detailed information about potential partners' problems and emotional struggles. Dating profiles often include references to past trauma, mental health challenges, or difficult life circumstances that trigger rescue impulses in people with fixer complexes. The platforms also enable ongoing monitoring of partners' emotional states through posts, stories, and online activity, creating opportunities for constant caretaking and advice giving. Additionally, social media provides access to partners' relationships with other people, triggering protective and controlling responses in individuals who believe they need to shield their partners from harmful influences or situations. The emotional payoffs that maintain attraction to partners who need fixing include feeling important and valuable, avoiding personal vulnerability and growth, maintaining a sense of control over relationship outcomes, and experiencing the intensity that comes from crisis and drama. These relationships provide constant purpose and meaning through ongoing rescue attempts, making the fixer feel essential and irreplaceable. The focus on someone else's problems also serves as distraction from personal issues that might require attention and change. Additionally, the cycle of helping in crisis creates emotional intensity that can be mistaken for passion and deep connection. Fixer attraction prevents genuine growth and healing for both partners because it maintains unhealthy dependency rather than promoting individual development. The person being fixed learns to rely on their partner's caretaking rather than developing their own coping skills and problem-solving abilities. This dynamic often enables destructive behaviors by removing natural consequences and providing external motivation instead of internal drive for change. Meanwhile, the fixer avoids their own healing work by staying focused on someone else's issues, preventing them from developing the self-awareness and emotional skills necessary for healthy relationships. Specific personality types most susceptible to rescuer relationship patterns include people pleasers who learned early that their worth depends on making others happy, individuals with high empathy levels who feel responsible for everyone's emotional well-being, perfectionists who believe they can solve any problem with enough effort, and those with anxiety disorders who attempt to control their environment through managing other people. Additionally, individuals with histories of trauma often develop fixer complexes as coping mechanisms, believing that if they can help others heal, they can somehow retroactively fix their own past experiences. These patterns create attraction to partners whose problems feel familiar and manageable, leading to relationships that recreate childhood dynamics rather than promoting mutual growth and satisfaction. Professional therapy can help rewire these neural patterns through neuroplasticity, allowing individuals to develop healthier relationship preferences over time. However, breaking free from fixer attraction requires recognizing that the intense emotional highs and lows created by these rescue dynamics often get mistaken for something much deeper and more meaningful than they actually are. Trauma bonding versus real love. Understanding the distinction between trauma bonding and genuine love becomes essential when these patterns create confusion about what constitutes a healthy relationship. Many people mistake trauma bonding for deep connection because the intense emotional fluctuations create a false sense of intimacy that feels more meaningful than stable relationships. Trauma bonding occurs when cycles of abuse followed by affection or reconciliation create powerful psychological attachments that mimic genuine love. The confusion arises because both experiences involve intense emotions and strong feelings of attachment, making it difficult to distinguish between authentic connection and psychological conditioning. The intermittent nature of positive reinforcement in abusive relationships actually strengthens the bond through unpredictability, creating a dynamic where moments of kindness feel more significant than they would in healthy relationships. Intense emotional highs and lows create artificial intimacy by triggering powerful neurochemical responses that the brain interprets as evidence of deep connection. These extreme fluctuations activate stress hormones and bonding chemicals simultaneously, creating a biochemical cocktail that feels more intense than the steady satisfaction of healthy relationships. The highs feel euphoric because they provide relief from the emotional pain of the lows, creating a cycle where reconciliation periods seem more meaningful than consistent kindness would. This artificial intimacy develops because the brain associates the intensity of emotions with the importance of the relationship, mistaking drama for depth and chaos for passion. The constant emotional activation creates a heightened state that can become addictive, making normal relationships feel boring or superficial by comparison. The biochemical similarities between trauma bonding and genuine love explain why people struggle to differentiate between these experiences. Both trauma bonding and authentic love involve the release of oxytocin, vasopressin, and dopamine, which are associated with attachment, bonding, and pleasure. The key difference lies in the context and consistency of these neurochemical releases. In healthy relationships, these chemicals are released during positive interactions and feelings of safety and connection. In trauma-bonded relationships, they are released during cycles of reconciliation following conflict or abuse, creating an association between relief from pain and feelings of love. The brain cannot distinguish between bonding chemicals released during genuine affection and those released during trauma recovery, leading to confusion about the nature of the relationship. Abuse cycles create powerful psychological dependencies through systematic patterns of intermittent reinforcement that mirror addiction processes. The cycle typically involves periods of tension building, explosive incidents, reconciliation, and temporary calm before the pattern repeats. During reconciliation phases, abusers often display excessive affection, attention, and promises of change, creating intense relief and hope in their victims. This pattern triggers dopamine releases that reinforce the relationship despite its harmful elements, creating a dependency similar to gambling addiction. The unpredictability of when positive reinforcement will occur makes the bond stronger, as the brain develops heightened sensitivity to any signs of affection or approval from the abusive partner. Trauma bonds often feel more intense than healthy relationships because they activate multiple neurochemical systems simultaneously and create artificial scarcity around positive experiences. The stress hormones released during conflict amplify emotional responses, making subsequent positive interactions feel more significant than they would in stable relationships. Additionally, the rarity of genuine kindness in abusive relationships makes these moments feel precious and meaningful, similar to how water tastes better when you're extremely thirsty. Healthy relationships may feel less exciting because they lack the dramatic emotional swings that create artificial intensity, leading people to mistake stability for boredom and chaos for passion. Research examining trauma bonding prevalence in modern dating culture reveals significant increases, particularly with the rise of digital communication and online dating platforms. The anonymity and reduced face-to-face interaction in digital dating can make it easier for toxic behaviors to develop undetected, contributing to trauma bond formation. Online platforms also enable rapid escalation of emotional intensity through constant communication, love bombing techniques, and the ability to monitor and control partners through digital means. The ease of access to multiple partners online allows manipulative individuals to maintain several trauma-bonded relationships simultaneously. The specific brain chemistry that makes toxic relationships feel addictive involves dopamine pathways that respond more strongly to unpredictable rewards than consistent ones. During abuse cycles, the brain releases dopamine in anticipation of potential reconciliation or affection, creating the same neurochemical response seen in substance addiction. Cortisol and adrenaline released during stressful interactions enhance memory formation, making both positive and negative experiences with the abusive partner feel more significant and memorable. The combination of stress hormones with bonding chemicals creates a powerful neurochemical signature that the brain associates with important relationships, making trauma-bonded connections feel more meaningful than healthy ones. Recognizing the difference between drama and authentic emotional depth requires examining whether emotional intensity comes from genuine connection or manufactured conflict. Authentic emotional depth involves consistent empathy, respect, and vulnerability that builds over time through shared experiences and mutual support. This type of intimacy feels stable and secure, allowing both partners to be themselves without fear of punishment or withdrawal of affection. Drama, however, creates artificial intensity through conflict, jealousy, manipulation, and emotional instability that keeps partners in a constant state of uncertainty. Dramatic relationships involve emotional highs and lows that feel intense, but do not contribute to genuine understanding or connection between partners. The healing process required to break free from trauma bonding patterns involves recognizing these cycles and developing comfort with stable, predictable relationships. The brain requires time to recalibrate its reward systems and learn to appreciate consistent kindness over dramatic intensity. This process often involves addressing underlying vulnerabilities that made someone susceptible to these patterns in the first place. Breaking free from trauma bonding ultimately requires examining the fundamental beliefs about love and worthiness that make the self-worth connection. Your relationship with yourself functions as the primary filter that determines who you attract and who you find acceptable as romantic partners. This internal relationship creates an invisible standard that operates below conscious awareness, guiding your romantic choices based on what you believe you deserve rather than what you consciously want. When you possess genuine self-worth, you naturally gravitate toward partners who treat you with respect and kindness because poor treatment feels foreign and unacceptable. However, when your self-relationship involves criticism, doubt, or feelings of inadequacy, you unconsciously seek partners whose behavior matches these internal patterns. The brain interprets familiar treatment as evidence of compatibility, making relationships that mirror your self-relationship feel more natural and comfortable than those that exceed your internal standards. Unconscious belief systems about personal worthiness drive attraction to harmful partners by creating invisible criteria for partner selection that operate without conscious input. These belief systems typically form during childhood and include messages about whether you deserve love, what you must do to earn affection, and how relationships should function. Common unconscious beliefs include the idea that love must be earned through suffering, that easy relationships are too good to be true, or that you must accept poor treatment because that is all you deserve. These beliefs create attraction to partners whose behavior confirms existing self-concepts, leading you to choose people who treat you in ways that match your internal narrative about your value and worthiness. Low self-esteem creates specific tolerance patterns for poor treatment in relationships because it establishes low expectations as normal and acceptable. Research from 2025 underscores a strong correlation between self-esteem and relationship quality, indicating that individuals with higher self-esteem tend to experience greater satisfaction and stability in their romantic partnerships. When self-esteem is compromised, behaviors that should trigger immediate boundary setting instead get rationalized, minimized, or accepted as deserved. This tolerance develops because low self-worth creates the belief that poor treatment is either normal or the best you can expect. The internal voice that should protect you from harmful treatment instead convinces you that the behavior is acceptable or that you somehow caused it. Specific thought patterns that make toxic behavior seem normal include rationalization, minimization, and self-blame that transform harmful actions into acceptable relationship dynamics. These cognitive distortions involve telling yourself that emotional abuse is just passionate communication, that controlling behavior demonstrates love and care, or that your partner's problems excuse their treatment of you. The thought patterns also include believing that all relationships involve drama and conflict, that being treated poorly means your partner feels comfortable with you, or that you must accept negative behavior because you also have flaws. These mental frameworks prevent recognition of toxic patterns by reframing harmful behavior as evidence of love, commitment, or relationship depth. Childhood messaging about worthiness profoundly affects adult partner selection by establishing core beliefs about what type of love and treatment you can expect from others. Children who receive consistent validation and support from caregivers develop expectations for respectful treatment that guide their adult relationship choices. However, children who experience criticism, neglect, or conditional love internalize messages about having to earn affection or settle for less than ideal treatment. These early experiences shape neural pathways that influence attraction patterns decades later, creating unconscious gravitation toward partners whose behavior matches childhood relationship experiences. The brain interprets this familiarity as evidence of compatibility, making harmful relationship patterns feel normal and healthy ones feel foreign. Research from 2025 indicates that social media comparison significantly impacts dating standards and self-worth, particularly among young adults, by creating unrealistic expectations and distorted perceptions of healthy relationships. Constant exposure to curated online profiles and idealized relationship portrayals leads to feelings of inadequacy and confusion about normal relationship dynamics. This digital comparison culture creates pressure to accept poor treatment rather than risk being alone, while simultaneously setting impossibly high standards for partner appearance and lifestyle. The disconnect between online presentations and reality makes genuine relationships feel disappointing compared to manufactured perfection, leading people to either settle for harmful treatment or reject potentially healthy partners for superficial reasons. The difference between healthy vulnerability and self-abandonment in relationships lies in maintaining personal boundaries and identity while sharing authentic emotions and experiences. Healthy vulnerability involves sharing your true thoughts and feelings while maintaining awareness of your own needs and limits within the relationship. This type of openness creates genuine intimacy without sacrificing personal well-being or autonomy. Self-abandonment, however, involves giving up personal boundaries, needs, and identity in attempts to maintain the relationship or avoid conflict. This pattern includes accepting treatment that violates your values, ignoring your own needs to focus entirely on your partner's wants, and changing core aspects of yourself to gain approval or avoid abandonment. Building genuine self-worth naturally shifts attraction toward healthier partners because internal standards for treatment automatically rise to match improved self-perception. A 2025 study revealed that building genuine self-worth naturally shifts attraction toward healthier partners, as individuals become less likely to tolerate disrespectful or manipulative behaviors when they develop stronger self-value. This shift occurs because the brain's pattern recognition system begins seeking partners whose behavior matches the improved internal relationship. When you genuinely believe you deserve respect and kindness, poor treatment feels jarring and unacceptable rather than familiar and normal. The attraction compass recalibrates to seek compatibility with your enhanced self-worth rather than confirming old patterns of inadequacy. Practical methods for identifying and changing limiting beliefs about love and worthiness include self-reflection exercises that reveal unconscious thought patterns and belief systems. These tools help individuals uncover and challenge negative thought patterns that undermine their self-esteem and influence their relationship choices. Begin by examining your relationship history to identify recurring patterns in partner behavior and your responses to poor treatment. Notice the internal voice that comments on your worthiness during relationship conflicts and challenges thoughts that minimize your value or excuse harmful behavior. Journaling about childhood messages regarding love and relationships can reveal core beliefs that drive adult attraction patterns. Professional guidance through therapy provides structured approaches for recognizing and changing deep-seated beliefs about worthiness and love that operate below conscious awareness. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps identify specific thought distortions that maintain tolerance for poor treatment, while attachment-based therapies address childhood patterns that influence adult relationship choices. Working with trained professionals provides accountability and expertise for navigating the complex process of belief change and developing new coping mechanisms that honor your value. The journey toward genuine self-worth requires patience because established neural pathways resist change, but consistent practice of new thought patterns creates lasting transformation in both self-perception and attraction patterns. This process involves learning to tolerate the discomfort that arises when choosing healthier relationship patterns that feel unfamiliar. Practice identifying moments when your worthiness feels questioned and consciously choosing responses that honor your value rather than confirming old patterns. Understanding these deep-seated patterns represents only the beginning of change, because your mind continues to operate sophisticated systems that automatically guide you toward familiar relationship dynamics. Breaking the pattern recognition system. Our brains match new partners to familiar emotional templates built in childhood, creating automatic attraction responses that prioritize psychological comfort over actual compatibility. This pattern recognition system functions like a sophisticated computer program that scans potential partners for specific combinations of personality traits, behaviors, and emotional responses that match your established relationship templates. The brain prioritizes efficiency over happiness, using these patterns to make rapid partner selection decisions without conscious input. This system developed as an evolutionary advantage to help our ancestors quickly identify safe versus dangerous social situations, but in modern relationships it often leads us toward partners who recreate familiar dysfunction rather than healthy compatibility. The recognition process happens within milliseconds of meeting someone, creating instant attraction or repulsion based on how closely they match your internal relationship blueprint. Familiar dysfunction provides psychological comfort because it operates within known parameters, while healthy relationship dynamics feel uncertain and potentially threatening to the unconscious mind. The brain interprets familiar patterns as safe, regardless of their actual impact on well-being, because predictability reduces cognitive load and energy expenditure. Dysfunction that matches childhood experiences feels normal and manageable, even when it causes emotional pain, because your nervous system developed coping mechanisms specifically designed for those patterns. Healthy dynamics, however, require new neural pathways and coping strategies that feel foreign and uncomfortable. This creates the paradox where harmful but familiar relationships feel easier to navigate than beneficial but unfamiliar ones, leading people to reject healthy partners as boring or incompatible while gravitating toward those who trigger familiar stress responses. Identifying your specific attraction patterns requires systematic analysis of your relationship history to uncover recurring themes in partner selection and relationship dynamics. Begin by examining the personality traits, behaviors, and emotional patterns that consistently appear across your romantic relationships, noting similarities in how partners treat you, communicate, and handle conflict. Pay attention to the specific moments when you feel most attracted to someone, identifying the triggers that create intense romantic interest versus steady appreciation. Common patterns include attraction during moments of emotional unavailability, increased interest when someone pulls away, excitement triggered by unpredictable behavior, or comfort when partners display familiar forms of dysfunction. Document the specific circumstances that make someone irresistible to you, including their emotional state, your emotional state, and the relationship context when attraction peaks. The underlying triggers for destructive attraction patterns often connect to unmet childhood needs, unresolved emotional wounds, or learned associations between love and specific types of treatment. These triggers can include fear of abandonment activated by emotionally distant partners, need for validation triggered by critical or withholding individuals, or desire for control activated by chaotic personalities who seem to need management. Examine how your attraction patterns relate to your family relationships, childhood experiences, and early romantic encounters to identify the original sources of these triggers. Notice whether you feel more attracted to partners who make you work for their attention, who need fixing or saving, who remind you of specific family members, or who create emotional intensity through conflict and drama. Conscious partner selection involves deliberate evaluation of compatibility factors, shared values, and relationship potential rather than following automatic attraction impulses. This process requires developing specific criteria for partner selection based on what contributes to healthy relationships rather than what feels familiar or exciting. Conscious selection includes assessing someone's emotional availability, communication skills, conflict resolution abilities, and capacity for mutual respect and support. It involves taking time to observe how potential partners treat service workers, handle stress, discuss past relationships, and respond to boundaries or disagreements. Unconscious autopilot choices, however, operate through immediate attraction responses that bypass rational evaluation, leading to partner selection based on emotional triggers rather than actual compatibility. Change feels uncomfortable even when current patterns cause pain because the brain resists alterations to established neural pathways and familiar behavioral systems. The nervous system interprets change as potential danger, triggering anxiety and discomfort designed to maintain existing patterns regardless of their consequences. Additionally, familiar pain feels more manageable than unknown experiences, even when those experiences might be positive. The brain evolved to prioritize survival over happiness, making it more willing to tolerate known dysfunction than risk unknown outcomes. This biological resistance to change explains why people often return to familiar relationship patterns even after recognizing their harmful effects, and why choosing healthier partners initially feels wrong or uncomfortable despite their superior treatment. Intentional interruption of automatic patterns can create new neural pathways over time through consistent practice of different partner selection criteria and relationship behaviors. This process involves deliberately choosing to interact with people who exhibit healthy relationship qualities, even when they do not trigger immediate intense attraction. Mindfulness and self-awareness create crucial space between trigger and response that allows conscious choice in romantic situations. Mindfulness practices help you observe attraction responses without immediately acting on them, providing opportunities to evaluate whether these responses serve your long-term relationship goals. Self-awareness involves recognizing when you are operating from automatic patterns versus conscious choice, noticing the specific emotions and thoughts that arise during attraction, and identifying moments when past experiences influence present decisions. Creating new neural pathways for healthier attraction responses requires consistent practice of different partner selection criteria and relationship behaviors. This process involves deliberately choosing to interact with people who exhibit healthy relationship qualities, even when they do not trigger immediate intense attraction. New pathways strengthen through repetition, requiring you to consistently choose stability over chaos, kindness over excitement, and compatibility over familiarity. The brain forms new associations through repeated positive experiences with healthier partners, gradually shifting attraction patterns toward people who can provide genuine emotional support and mutual respect. This neuroplasticity process takes time because established pathways remain active while new ones develop, creating periods where both old and new attraction patterns compete for influence. The timeline for rewiring deep-seated relationship patterns typically ranges from 18 months to 3 years, depending on the depth of original conditioning and consistency of intervention efforts. Initial changes in recognition and awareness often occur within 3 to 6 months of focused work, while lasting shifts in attraction patterns usually require 12 to 18 months of consistent practice. The process involves several stages, including pattern recognition, conscious interruption of automatic responses, experimentation with different partner types, and integration of new relationship preferences. Challenges include discomfort with unfamiliar relationship dynamics, temporary increases in anxiety when choosing differently, and the tendency to revert to familiar patterns during stress or emotional vulnerability. However, even when people successfully recognize these patterns and begin making conscious choices, they often encounter an unexpected obstacle that can derail their progress entirely. The very relationships they claim to want can trigger profound discomfort that makes familiar dysfunction feel safer than genuine health. The fear of healthy love. This discomfort reveals a counterintuitive fear of genuinely healthy relationships that prevents many people from accepting the love and stability they claim to want. This fear operates below conscious awareness, creating resistance to partners who offer consistency, respect, and emotional availability. The anxiety arises because healthy relationships require different emotional skills and coping mechanisms than the chaos-based patterns these individuals learned during childhood or past relationships. When someone approaches with genuine care and interest, it can trigger panic responses because the unfamiliar territory of being valued feels more threatening than the known territory of being mistreated. This psychological response explains why some people consistently sabotage promising relationships or find excuses to end connections with emotionally healthy partners. A 2025 study underscores this counterintuitive phenomenon, revealing that many individuals harbor a fear of genuinely healthy relationships, where stability and kindness can trigger anxiety in those accustomed to chaos. The research indicates that the familiarity of toxic patterns can feel safer than the unknown territory of genuine intimacy, leading to a preference for the excitement of drama over the satisfaction of stability. This fear often stems from past relationship trauma, creating resistance towards the vulnerability required for healthy love. Healthy partners often feel boring or unexciting because they do not activate the stress response systems that create artificial intensity in toxic relationships. The brain associates excitement with danger and unpredictability, making stable partners seem less stimulating than those who create emotional chaos. This perception develops because many people confuse drama with passion, interpreting the adrenaline rush from relationship conflict as evidence of deep connection. Healthy partners provide steady satisfaction rather than dramatic highs and lows, which can feel anticlimactic to those addicted to emotional intensity. The absence of crisis and conflict removes the artificial excitement that masks underlying relationship problems, forcing individuals to face themselves and their own issues without external distractions. Fear of intimacy frequently disguises itself as attraction to unavailable or harmful people, because pursuing someone who cannot provide genuine connection offers the illusion of romantic engagement without real emotional risk. This pattern allows individuals to maintain their romantic identity and hope while avoiding the vulnerability required for authentic intimacy. Unavailable partners provide safe targets for emotional investment because their distance prevents the possibility of being truly known and potentially rejected. The fear manifests as finding excuses to avoid deepening connections with available partners while obsessing over those who remain emotionally distant. This dynamic creates the perfect protection against the perceived dangers of being fully seen and accepted by another person. The vulnerability required for healthy love involves allowing another person to see your authentic self, including flaws, fears, and insecurities, while trusting that they will respond with continued care and respect. This level of openness requires dismantling protective barriers that may have served important functions during childhood or past traumatic relationships. Healthy love demands honesty about needs, feelings, and boundaries, which feels terrifying to those who learned that expressing these things leads to punishment or abandonment. The safety of toxic patterns lies in their predictability and the fact that they do not require genuine emotional exposure. Toxic relationships allow individuals to maintain emotional walls while still experiencing the intensity that feels like connection. Attachment theory explains how fear of intimacy manifests in healthy relationship contexts, particularly through avoidant attachment patterns. Research indicates that individuals with avoidant attachment styles find stable, kind partners boring or unexciting because they are accustomed to the chaos and emotional distance of past relationships. These attachment patterns are significantly linked to fear of genuine intimacy, manifesting as preference for emotionally unavailable partners where the lack of commitment and emotional depth feels less threatening than the vulnerability required in healthy partnerships. These individuals often interpret the consistency of healthy relationships as evidence of weakness or lack of authenticity, rather than recognizing it as a sign of emotional maturity. Past relationship trauma creates specific resistance patterns to healthy partnerships by establishing expectations that love involves pain, struggle, or emotional unavailability. Traumatic relationship experiences teach the brain that safety comes from maintaining distance, and that closeness leads to harm. These learned associations make healthy partnership feel dangerous because it requires letting go of protective mechanisms that once provided survival. The trauma creates hypervigilance around emotional safety, making individuals suspicious of partners who do not trigger familiar warning signals. Additionally, trauma can create beliefs that they do not deserve healthy treatment, causing them to unconsciously seek partners who confirm these negative self-concepts through poor behavior. The difference between excitement from drama and satisfaction from stability lies in the source and sustainability of positive emotions experienced in relationships. Drama creates excitement through artificial crisis and resolution cycles that trigger stress hormones and provide temporary relief, creating addictive patterns that require escalation to maintain the same emotional impact. This type of excitement depends on external conflict and cannot be sustained without ongoing chaos and emotional turmoil. Satisfaction from stability, however, comes from consistent mutual respect, shared growth, and deepening connection that builds over time. This satisfaction feels quieter, but more sustainable because it does not depend on crisis cycles or emotional manipulation to create positive feelings. Overcoming the discomfort of being truly seen and accepted requires gradual exposure to vulnerability, combined with conscious recognition that safety can exist within intimate relationships. This process involves starting with small acts of authenticity and observing that healthy partners respond with continued care rather than judgment or abandonment. Learning to tolerate the anxiety that arises when someone sees your real self without running away or creating conflict takes practice and patience. It requires challenging the internal voice that insists you will be rejected if people know who you really are. Building comfort with being known involves recognizing that the right partner will appreciate your authenticity rather than punish you for it. The journey toward accepting healthy love involves developing new neural pathways that associate safety with connection rather than distance. This requires practicing staying present during moments of care and kindness instead of automatically creating emotional distance or conflict. Learning to receive love involves recognizing when you are pushing away positive experiences and consciously choosing different responses. The process includes developing tolerance for the vulnerability required to let someone matter to you and accepting that healthy relationships involve interdependence rather than complete independence. Choosing healthy love requires courage because it means risking the possibility that you might be truly known and still rejected, facing your own healing work without the distraction of relationship drama, and accepting that you deserve better treatment than you may have received in the past. This choice demands willingness to heal from past wounds that created protective barriers against intimacy. The courage involves letting go of familiar patterns, even when they feel safer than unknown healthy dynamics. Ultimately, choosing healthy love means deciding that the possibility of genuine connection is worth the risk of vulnerability, and that you deserve relationships based on mutual respect rather than familiar dysfunction. Understanding these fears represents the first step toward transformation. But the real question becomes rewiring your attraction compass. Neuroplasticity research confirms that attraction patterns can be consciously changed with dedicated work, offering genuine hope for anyone trapped in cycles of destructive relationships. This transformation requires commitment and patience, but the human brain's ability to form new neural pathways means that even deeply embedded patterns formed during childhood can be rewired through consistent effort. The process involves developing awareness of your current patterns, understanding their origins, and deliberately practicing new responses to romantic triggers. While change feels uncomfortable initially, thousands of people have successfully shifted their attraction compass toward healthier partners through conscious intervention and practice. Conscious intervention via mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, and new partner criteria can gradually rewire neural pathways that govern attraction responses. Mindfulness practices create crucial space between trigger and response in dating situations by by developing awareness of automatic attraction responses before acting on them. Daily meditation strengthens the ability to observe thoughts and feelings without immediately following their directives, providing opportunities to choose conscious responses rather than automatic patterns. Body awareness practices help individuals notice physical sensations that accompany different types of attraction, learning to distinguish between anxiety-based excitement and genuine romantic interest. Mindful dating involves paying attention to how potential partners make you feel over time, rather than relying on immediate intensity or chemistry as indicators of compatibility. Breathing exercises during social interactions help manage the nervous system activation that often accompanies encounters with triggering personality types. Journaling practices reveal patterns in attraction and relationship choices, providing concrete evidence of recurring themes that might otherwise remain unconscious. Present moment awareness techniques help individuals stay grounded during dating experiences, rather than getting lost in fantasy projections about potential partners. These mindfulness tools require consistent practice, but gradually create the mental space necessary for conscious relationship choices. Cognitive behavioral approaches prove particularly effective for shifting relationship patterns by identifying and challenging the thought distortions that maintain attraction to harmful partners. This method helps individuals recognize automatic thoughts that justify poor treatment or romanticize toxic behavior, replacing these patterns with realistic assessments of partner compatibility. The approach works by creating new neural pathways that support healthier relationship choices over time, addressing both the thoughts and behaviors that perpetuate destructive attraction cycles. Developing new criteria for partner selection based on compatibility involves creating specific standards that prioritize emotional health, communication skills, and shared values over excitement or familiarity. This process requires honest assessment of what actually contributes to relationship satisfaction versus what triggers immediate attraction. Practical criteria might include observing how potential partners treat service workers, handle disagreement, discuss past relationships, and respond to boundaries. Evaluating someone's emotional availability, conflict resolution abilities, and capacity for empathy provides better predictors of relationship success than relying on chemistry or physical attraction alone. The new selection process involves taking time to observe potential partners in various situations before making emotional commitments, resisting the urge to rush into intensity-based connections. Creating lists of non-negotiable qualities helps maintain focus on compatibility factors when attraction triggers threaten to override rational assessment. This approach requires patience because healthy partners often feel less immediately exciting than those who activate familiar dysfunction patterns. Learning to appreciate steady kindness over dramatic intensity represents a fundamental shift in how relationships are evaluated and chosen. Healing past wounds naturally shifts what you find attractive because addressing underlying emotional issues removes the unconscious drive to recreate familiar dysfunction. Therapeutic work that focuses on childhood attachment experiences often results in decreased attraction to emotionally unavailable or harmful partners without conscious effort to change preferences. Processing grief from past relationships allows individuals to stop seeking partners who might heal old wounds and instead choose those who complement their healed selves. This healing work creates attraction to partners who can engage with your authentic self rather than those who trigger unresolved emotional issues. Trauma processing removes the emotional charge from triggers that previously created intense attraction to harmful partners, making it easier to recognize red flags and trust gut instincts about compatibility. Self-compassion practices reduce the internal criticism that drives attraction to partners who treat you poorly, naturally raising standards for acceptable treatment. This healing work addresses the parts of yourself that seek validation or love through problematic relationship dynamics, creating space for healthier connection patterns to emerge. Support systems and accountability partners play essential roles in maintaining new relationship choices by providing external perspective when old patterns threaten to resurface. Trusted friends can offer observations about your dating choices that you might miss due to emotional involvement. Accountability structures might include check-ins with supportive friends before making relationship decisions, mandatory waiting periods before becoming exclusive with new partners, or regular sessions with trained professionals during active dating periods. Support systems help maintain perspective during the discomfort of choosing differently and celebrate progress toward healthier relationship patterns. These external resources prove crucial because changing attraction patterns often feels wrong initially, making external validation of progress essential for maintaining new behaviors. The process requires tolerance for unfamiliar emotional experiences, as healthy relationships initially feel boring or wrong compared to familiar dysfunction. This discomfort signals progress rather than incompatibility, indicating that new neural pathways are forming to support different relationship choices. Neuroplasticity allows new patterns to form over 1 to 2 years of consistent practice, with initial awareness changes occurring within 3 to 6 months. Neural pathway changes require repetitive practice over extended periods, making patience essential for lasting transformation. Some individuals experience rapid shifts in attraction preferences after processing specific traumas, while others require gradual exposure to healthier relationship dynamics over longer periods. The ultimate freedom comes from conscious choice in love, where relationships are selected based on genuine compatibility rather than unconscious compulsion to recreate familiar patterns. This transformation represents more than changing who you date. It fundamentally alters how you experience connection, intimacy, and your own worth within relationships. The journey requires courage to face uncomfortable truths about your patterns, but the reward is the ability to create relationships that actually support your growth and happiness rather than repeating cycles that keep you stuck. This transformation happens through 3 essential steps that anyone can implement. First, develop awareness of your neural patterns by examining your relationship history and identifying recurring attraction triggers. Second, practice conscious pattern interruption by creating space between feeling attraction and acting on it, allowing rational evaluation of compatibility factors. Third, engage in consistent neuroplasticity practice through mindfulness, new partner criteria, and healing work that gradually rewires your brain's attraction responses. Take time to examine your own relationship history with compassion and curiosity, recognizing that these patterns developed for reasons that made sense at the time. Choosing healthy love requires courage, but it transforms not just relationships, but entire life trajectories. By understanding your brain's wiring, you can choose partners who truly appreciate you, unlocking the love